All right, here we go. Ray Ives, The Pen of an Underdog. Basically going through the parts of the book. We're on part 6 of 7. And this part 6 is called The Final Performance, circa 2019 to 2020. It's an interesting point in my career because there was so much happening here. And I was coming off the private equity, and there was nothing wrong with working for private equity. Like, I understood it, right? It's the fundamentals of return on investment, capital expenditure, capitalism at work, like the business machine working. People are selling businesses, people are buying, acquisitions, add-ons, excitement, high performance. So I have a level of respect for private equity. For me, at that point in time, I was on the sales team and it was very complicated. And I just saw the culture for something that I once loved transition from euphoric to average. And it was still average, which isn't bad, and it's all relative. But for me, it was too painful. It was too painful to go through all of those processes. So part 6, the pain sort of continues here. It wasn't an easy time for me at all. I was just coming off, finishing my MBA, doing different things at the company, and just not being able to communicate openly and freely, not be able to wear my integrity on my shirt and have these strategic conversations. There was too many constraints, and I didn't feel that I could thrive. I didn't feel free in that environment. So here we are leading up to this. And part 6, again, is there's just a lot coming at me here in life. And I want to share that. And again, sharing my vulnerability doesn't have anything to do with my ego or bragging. It's really part of the story, the pen of an underdog, that underdog story, right? The underdog doesn't feel shame or guilt in the title underdog. It's like being knighted in the underworld or training for the outer world. Like that underdog story, our shared underdog story, your underdog story. And the reason I share this is because there's going to come points where things get difficult. You're in the quicksand or you're in the storm and you're not really seeing clearly and it's starting to affect you. So for me, I was at the point like, okay, it is time to leave. So the first subchapter is called The Last Supper, and it really takes place, the environment that it takes place is I was interviewing for this new job as a division vice president, and I was still working for the OG Mastery and having a client dinner. And I call that The Last Supper. I'm in my career, not happy where I was at. I had this commitment because I finished they financed my MBA, and we're at the annual conference and I was doing some networking. There's so many companies here, retailers, wholesalers, manufacturers, brokers. This is the part. If I was ever going to go to a different company, this was an opportunity to network. And when I was working in the in-store bakery, there was 2 companies that I really respected. They had all natural products. They tasted great. The cultures were beautiful. So I was already working for one that now sold to private equity, and the other one was called Las Boring Bakery. A woman entrepreneur started an artisan bread company on Las Boring Street in California. Amazing product, real ingredients. She developed a recipe for a starter to make artisan bread using grape skins to add flavor, a robust flavor to the fermentation process. And it was simple ingredients, no preservatives, no artificial colors, none of that. And I was like, okay, now that is a brand that I could attach to. That is something that I would love to be a part of. And what had happened, and I thought the culture really stayed the same, was a big company that was publicly traded. It was publicly traded on the Irish and Swiss exchange. It was called the Rat Race. Came to the United States basically with a bag of money and started acquiring companies. So here it was. I told myself, I want to attach with a good brand, this artisan bread. I love artisan bread. Artisan bread, warm, olive oil, Parmesan cheese, black pepper. We're cooking here. At this conference, I was doing some networking, and I went up to their booth and wanted to meet the CEO. And so the person that I was speaking to was like, okay, I'm going to introduce you to the CEO, but he's not here right now. Why don't you just meet the senior vice president of client development? Okay, great. And so it's this guy, Amor Balbo. He was like the epitome of a Chicago old town professional. Salt and pepper hair, impeccable style, really that worked best in Chicago. He had a finance background. He worked his way up. He was a likable guy. He was both, I would say, both arrogant and likable at the same time. Had a conversation with him, and it was very simple. Hey, nice to meet you. My name is, I've been in the industry for this long, and I live in Chicago, Illinois. That led to an interview process to be a division vice president for this company. And during the interview process, you could see, so this is where it's going. It's like the Last Supper. I'm still managing still have a foot in the old company, managing clients. And I would say this with managing clients is, even though I was, disgruntled is a strong word, unhappy at the company, and I didn't feel connected to the vision of the company. Private equity their exit strategy started before it started. They were out in 5 years. And I knew that it was going to come time where they started painting the walls and making everything nice and cleaning up the balance sheets to sell it to a company. And I didn't want to be a part of that. And I was still a great representative of that company. I never sabotaged everything. I never spoke poorly of the product or the process. I was clear, though, that I was unhappy because I wasn't going to completely hide. If a company was just looking for a product to buy that their end users were going to appreciate and the repeat purchase rate was high, that was my message. Me personally, we don't even have to talk about it. But I would say there was some confusion. The leadership was really torn. And things just started happening where we couldn't be transparent. And the integrity of the process was missing. So get an interview just by networking. And I remember the first rounds of interviews, I met the CEO in the Chicago office, CEO, CFO, Senior Vice President of Human Resources, Senior Vice President of Sales. I just met a lot of great people. And this office was my dream. Chicago, right on the Chicago River, adjacent to the Merchandise Mart. And the Merchandise Mart was like a thing of beauty. I almost wanted to be a part of that back in the day when I was a bartender at the Italian restaurant and people would come in and they have their work badge. I'm going to have a Chicago office. I'm going to have a work badge. And for these interviews, I would put everything into these interviews that I possibly could. All effort, all ideation, all problems, all solutions solved, turnkey phrases that I would practice, almost like giving a speech. I would rehearse. And there was two things I did. One, I wanted to show my proof of work. And the way I did that, I had created an 8-page, 3-year plan previously for the company I was working with, and I shared that. I didn't share any financial information. I took out all the numbers, just left in the formatting and the percentage increases. That was it. And these charts, I remember these charts were so beautiful. It was like an art form. The way they're constructed, the way the formatting, the template, everything. And when I say template, I created a template. I didn't just plagiarize a template. And so this business plan had 8 parts. It was a summary of the largest accounts in the U.S. It included company profiles, opportunities, threats, business drivers. There was 1. 2, there was an outline of strategy by category. It had sales history, future growth, and assumptions. 3, a 3-year growth and building blocks. How are we going to go from base year 1, 2, and 3? And I showed what that looked like, what those building blocks were like. 4, execution gaps, the realized benefit of executing broker management and corporate planograms and strategy. Part 5 was an outlined capital expenditure requirement and corresponding break-even analysis. Now, think about that. For me, this just became second thought. I knew these were the things that had to get done for the right reasons. And when I read these things, and my point of reference is, okay, here I am. I solidified a career. The underdog story is seeing its way out to no longer being an underdog. And that might be the first time I said it. It was like, I am no longer an underdog. And that felt good to say, no longer an underdog. I'll always have that spirit, but the point is to get out of ever feeling a lack of self-esteem, a lack of confidence, or the imposter syndrome. I'm at the point now where those things are dissipating. I'm becoming confident. I understand my worth. I understand the strategic mindset, the growth mindset, and what I was bringing to a company. The sixth part was it was a summary of product expansion. So if we're in certain categories now, and that's our core business model, where could we go next? Part 7 was a comprehensive product summary, and it showed projected growth by category. And then lastly, next steps and accountability assignments. This was a legitimate business plan. And I was like, okay, the easiest way for me to prove my work is to show historic examples. And this was it. And the other thing I did was all proactive thinking. What are they going to want to see? What are they trying to solve was my mindset. Thinking about it, not as me, not about my brag sheet, but sort of saying, I've done this in my past career or my past position, and here's what I'd like to do if I was in this position. And with that position, I put a 30, 60, 90-day plan together. And it was awesome. So it was like first 30 days, collaborate with the executive leadership, meet cross-functional experts, learn business operations, internal processes, and become a product expert. That was the first 30 days. And I had this graphed out. Again, beautiful template, beautiful colors that match logo and brand. 60 days was build customer relationships, identify opportunity gaps, review and prioritize objectives, sales objectives, and master category insights. And then the 90 days in, my recommendation was to emphasize customer focus, fill customer pipeline, develop a 2 to 3 year business strategy on revenue growth, and within the first 90 days, provide a draft of that. So you can see I showed up. I put it all on the line. I was ready. I showed up like this was it. Like if I was going to get this job, I am going to plug in every ounce of energy, ambition, skills into the interview process. And I did. And I went even a step further. After it was all said and done, I went to the paper stock store, like this premium outlet where they saw thank you cards. And I remember seeing the perfect card. It was a thick material. It had embroidered designs, but it looked elegant. It wasn't too much. It was smooth. And my message was I wanted to exemplify greatness and also express gratitude. Greatness being that extra step in the process, that extra effort. And what I did after meeting with everybody, I sent individual letters, individual handwritten letters. I went to FedEx, next date it, called the executive assistant to the CEO, and basically said, nice meeting you. Can you do me a favor? I'm sending over a package. There's thank you letters in there for each respective person that I interviewed with. Could you see it that it gets to them, on their desk or in their hand? They're going to arrive no later than 10 a.m. tomorrow. And she was very nice. Oh, no problem, Ray. Great meeting you. All these things. So felt good. Now, here I am. Great interview process. Now at a client dinner in Arizona. And I remember one thing that really stuck out is having the conversations. Everybody who worked in that category always said, I'm so passionate about cake. I'm so passionate about cake. And again, this is going back to the previous company, not moving forward and working for a rat race. This was the OG Mastery. I'm so passionate. I just love every day what I'm doing. And I was like, wow, these people, are they really passionate about this? Or are they just saying it? Because I did feel like some people said it because they overheard other people saying it, overheard other people saying it. And it was like they were trained to say it to fit in. And so I was sitting down and I was, having drinks with two people that I worked with, and they were talking about their passion. It sparked interest in my mental thought to say, okay, I want to be passionate about it. And I was like, I wasn't passionate about the private equity company. I was no longer passionate about the cake, although it was a masterpiece of a product. Made from scratch, 100% whipped cream, Belgium chocolates, real fruit, farm to table, no artificial colors, no preservatives. Like, I love the product. And so here I was going into what I call the last supper, the last time I was going to entertain, because I was anticipating getting that job. So I interviewed, I'm still managing clients, and just had a great dinner. Entertaining clients is an art. Everybody sits down at the table, and I was the host essentially. And I knew if you're the host, don't make it awkward. Don't sit down and say, "Oh, are there any food allergies at the table?" Which is sort of a nice thing to say now, but I knew everybody there, so I knew there was no food allergies. But the point is being the host, is being gracious and making everybody feel welcome. Like, we're going to sit down, we're going to eat and drink, we're going to share stories, we're going to share ideas, we're going to problem solve. And I don't want anybody, as a host, I didn't want anybody realizing that, like, oh, what should I order? Too much of this, too much of that. I was like, no, I jumped right in. The server came up, 2 orders of oysters, 2 orders of the Maine lobster cocktail, colossal shrimp, 2 orders of meatballs, 1 bottle of duckhorn Cabernet, 1 bottle of flower Chardonnay. Let's go. We're going to have a good time. Everyone comfortable? Let's eat. Order whatever you want. And that was the mindset. And then even in dessert, went big on dessert. So at this point in time, I was confident that I was no longer the underdog, because I was interviewing now for a job in Chicago to be division vice president. And I knew that this was going to be the last event or dinner with entertaining clients from my previous company. So I'm going to stop there. Hope that was entertaining. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe. Let's keep this conversation going. There's a lot to learn here. Buy the book. It's on Amazon, The Pen of an Underdog. And I say that, and I've said a lot of different ways. I'm going to say it one more way. Wouldn't it be interesting to read somebody's book that is just your average human being in the United States that decided to write a book that's going to share the stories of growth and career trajectory and becoming an underdog to a certain point and then figuring out purpose? Like, that is the pen of an underdog. And that's what I want to share. And that's what I want to open up, right? The pen of an underdog. It's all in here. It's on Amazon. Ray Ives, The Pen of an Underdog. Thanks for joining.